Howdy. Okay, I'm gonna try this. These are just river stones, like a jade colored river stone that I have. I put a little handful of them in this bag, mix them up, pour them out and read this. Immediately I'm getting like a balancing, it's a mixture between balancing between it's not pulling from one's own experience in order to balance. It's grounding oneself in order to pull from one's like current or future experience. So it's not in reference to the past. This is in reference to the future. And I'm seeing a separation of I'm getting like the Wheel of Fortune energy with this one that came out over here. And it's giving me like a separation of this wheel from everything else. It's almost like a clamoring as it's trying to, there's like a group of people kind of clamoring to achieve something, but it's kind of all crumbling down. It's kind of all, it's coming down. It's grounding itself, really. And so what's being revealed is the reality of things that way. Not just the high hopes and the intentions, but what's actually come of that. And that gives me this, because what's important is what actually is done, not what you intended to be done. And it's so hard to get on top of that, and it's so hard to gauge that, and generally speaking, we're going to make mistakes, but if your intentions are pure, you can tend to fall back on that and trust that those things will come to be, for the fact that all things work out for good, truly. Not just for those that love good, but in general, that's always happening. And so loving good allows you to become to come into alignment with reality, for all things are always happening for good. It's also that sense of, if you raise them up in the way that they should go, they won't stray from it. It doesn't mean to demand or control things, but to lead by example. And if you do that, then you can trust, because you've done it yourself. So you know that it's coming through you. You can know that it's something that actually works and sticks. And that way, the intent behind it, when it breaks down into this balance, will also stick. But what I'm seeing here too is that there is a separation of those two things. There's one definitive way that things were always kind of gonna be, and whoever has aligned themselves with that. And then there's all of these other intents that were set up, where it's almost like all these individuals had their own little intent in this plan. And what's being shown as everything falls into place is that so many of those things were misleading and weren't leading into exactly what they intended. But at the same time, it's also like, it's teaching of intent in that way. Yeah, let me think of a good example. Like, it's a wordplay thing, which is why, like, don't cast spells. And, you know, if it comes out unintentionally and you're aware of it, you can change it. But, like, if you're just doing things because that's the way that you communicate, that's one thing that's coming from you. That's just how it is. We're always, by communicating, casting some sort of spell to some degree. But when you are actively trying to cast a spell, I've seen these memes where, like, if somebody doesn't know how to spell very well, their intention is for one thing, but what actually comes of that is something different because they didn't spell it right, or they didn't use proper punctuation. And it's kind of that sense where it's like your intent speaks for itself, but, like, those things come back to you too, depending on how you're doing them. So, like, if you're writing somebody a love letter and you can't spell for shit, but you put your real heart into it, they're still going to receive, well, as long as they're not a piece of shit, they're still going to receive love from it, right? But if you're trying to curse somebody and you write them a letter, they're going to look at that and they're going to be like, this dumb idiot doesn't even know how to spell, you know? And that'll come back on you where, like, now you look like an idiot. And then, like, even if those things take to some degree, like, there is some things, there's intentions here that have brought about connections, that have established certain things, there's actions that have consequences that are in a certain alignment. But it's just not exactly what was foreseen by most. However, we have this one grounded person, potentially an older person, somebody a lot more rounded, less given to their emotions, than most. They're also not hyper fixated on money as some of these people are. They're a bit more spiritualistic, maybe even than they tend to seem on the surface. And their intent has lined up seemingly exactly as intended. I mean, they have a full line right here that is in perfect balance. However, because they've involved themselves with these other fools, there's just a lot of chaos, and what it's done is that it's actually pushed this intention in a different direction. Again, it's all pushed it. This line, I assume, you know, if it was all the way around, it would actually have this Wheel of Fortune right in alignment with it. And this person's looking directly at the Wheel of Fortune. But all of these steps that they took to get there have actually been pushed in a separate direction because of these others that they've involved themselves with. And so what I'm seeing in that too is that there's like there's a specific group that they have very closely aligned their steps with, that is overseen essentially by two main characters. But there's this other separate member of the group, or a separate person from the group, that's kind of just moved these steps out of their intentional alignment. This person is not affiliated with these two in the way that these are. They're still part of this group somehow, but they're not properly affiliated with these two. They're not under the influence of these two. And this person placed themselves in this position to be under this group, to kind of use this group was their intention. They're kind of a different stone than the rest of these. So, you know, they have this different quality to them. And these stones are very similar to this. So it was kind of like, I already know the steps that I'm taking, And so I'm going to affiliate with this group in order to move in this direction. But because of this one character being separate from these things, it's almost like this person also saw the Wheel of Fortune and is like working to align themselves in some degree. And really both this person and this person are equal distance from the Wheel of Fortune. But it looks like this person just set themselves up this way. And or maybe even just like trusting as things move in a certain direction, one way or the other, that they'll reach that Wheel of Fortune. This person's done a lot of work that's ended up almost moving them in the opposite direction. Maybe that's where the age comes into. Maybe they're just more tired. They're overwhelmed. There's also these two energies over here that are kind of like, this guy's giving me like an ominous feeling of like blocking these steps somehow, or like the steps were allowed to be taken and set up, but it wasn't just these people pushing it in one direction. Eventually that would still come around and this person could trust in that, but there's a blockage there as well where like these people aren't going to let that happen. This is like a main person and then their little follower. These steps I'm seeing are they're not even the wrong steps. Like I said, if they were in a proper alignment with the Wheel of Fortune, they'd actually help get this person there. They're just not. And this person's like not even taking any steps. They're kind of just letting the tides turn as they may. But it's put them in an equal position with the Wheel of Fortune. These two, I mean, really, if the wheel were to revert back onto itself, would directly be on top of the Wheel of Fortune. It would actually take more for this person to get there. If the wheel's revolving around this person. But who's to say the wheel's revolving around this person? The only reason it seems that way is because this person's done so much work and it's attracting these people towards that. But really, none of this is close to the Wheel of Fortune. They're all equally distant from it. Okay, so what's it going to take for these multiple different energies to attain the Wheel of Fortune, or to get wherever it is that they're going? Okay, so first off, I'm seeing that this main character that I had has to isolate and has to trust as the steps that they had taken were broken down and are kind of taken by these other pieces and used for these other pieces. These two characters that were blocking have now taken on. It's funny because actually when I was first reading them, I saw this stone and this stone is similar because they are similar in color. This one was slightly isolated though, and this one was part of the group, right? But I saw them as very similar. And what I'm seeing is that like these people attempting to block this stone, these people attempting to block this person, have mistakenly connected to this person, believing that they were this person. And now this person is the one that was set separate from the group, but was still somehow affiliated. This person was using the group through all these proper steps. this person wasn't using any steps, but had become somehow affiliated, but not under the main two, which we have here and here. What's happened now is these people kind of took these and they're like, okay, it's like a mistaken identity. They think that they have this character that was separate, but it's the wrong character. And all of the steps that this one had taken are now being used and applied by these other characters. And it's kind of shifted the tides to where it's put other people obviously much closer. But as we see, the Wheel of Fortune is still just out of grasp. And it's almost like in realizing, I mean, as much as this is mistaken identity, this is almost mistaken identity too. It seems that these characters haven't realized that this character is the one that had set all of these up in the first place. They saw that this character was near the group, but slightly separate, and so they've all been like, oh, that's where the power is coming from, not realizing, because this one's slightly different, and he's more muted, you know, than the rest of these. And so they were looking at this one and being like, okay, that's the one that we need to get. And have kind of ganged up almost, using all of these tools, trying to use all of these tools against this one. But this one's like, what's even happening? Because those weren't its tools. Okay, so it's kind of just clouded by all of this. And again, they're almost distracted at this point. They're not even trying to reach the Wheel of Fortune. They think that what's going to get them to the Wheel of Fortune is by taking out these things that are blocking them. But these were the things that were blocking anybody, these two characters. And they've made the same mistake that everybody else made, which was that they think that this is where the power is coming from, but really it's coming from this character. Like I said, it's like this older character, or maybe just a more tired character, or like a more grounded character. This one also has some pretty shallow concepts. This one's actually quite shallow. This one's probably actually the most shallow out of all of these. So very petty, very based on monetary wealth. This one actually has monetary wealth. This one has less of it, but has the appearance of it. And so these ones might end up finding, you know, these two that have mistaken this identity, they might end up finding some sort of abundance actually in this person. But it's not going to be the divine abundance of the Wheel of Fortune. It is just that one's personal fortune, where this one doesn't actually really have personal fortune. It only had the appearance of, it wasn't even connected to the group. It just had the appearance of that. But now we have these two the heads of the group, like very closely watching this one. All these other ones trying to mesh with it, trying to use all these steps to gain some sort of favor from this one stone that set itself up when, like, that's not. They're all a bit mistaken. Okay, let's see. One more, just to see what's going on here. Where is this headed? Where's this headed? What's going on here? Wow, what a shakeup. Okay, so the first thing I'm seeing is that this stone was part of the original steps taken to try to reach abundance. And in the second step, like, all of them had been dismissed and moved away from, right? And being adapted by others. This one has been completely removed from the group entirely. And this one I saw as purity. Some sense of purification. It's the most quartz out of these stones. The clearest out of these stones. This grounded character is on his head. He's on this other side of his body, and there's cracks and like dark spots. It almost seems like this character is like completely removed. Also, this was the head, which was like a sense for me of grounding one's intuition, kind of using one's history as a source for wisdom. That's also removed from this group. We have the main blockage. We have the main blockage here where it's separate from its follower. And it seems that as it and its follower took on this, like I said, this mistaken identity for its finances, this main thief, you know, they're like blocking from abundance. So like this main thief bound itself to the wrong person and the wrong abundance. And in that, their partner left them, their follower left them, and actually found abundance, actually found the Wheel of Fortune here. But so did that character that was just waiting, this one that didn't like do all these specific steps, wasn't trying to use the group a certain way, wasn't following any specific thing, but kind of was just fell into a specific place where it was somehow affiliated just by appearances alone. And because of that, and because of everybody binding themselves to that to some degree, now not everybody did it properly, some people bound themselves to the wrong identity, but because of that, it also has reached the Wheel of Fortune. Along with these two, this one for sure was part of the steps. This was one of the characters in the group. So there's one of the follower of the thief has found the abundance. And truly, they were following the thief, but no, they were following the thief, but they didn't bind themselves to this other identity, or this other entity or whatever person, in their finances. So they moved away from this, and interestingly enough, they kind of almost look similar to the Wheel of Fortune, except that they're in really poor shape. But it's almost like they were a very broken person, that they, on the surface, had a lot of issues. Maybe they were a drug addict. Maybe they had some sort of physical deformity that, you know, kind of made them different from others. Maybe like a developmental disability or something like that made them, you know, seemingly so different from everybody else. So they kind of had to, they were being strategic, and they were playing a form of chess in order to get themselves into a position of power. And so they trusted this thief, because this thief had set themselves up separate from the rest of the group. And we're like, we're going to block the abundance from all of them, and then we're going to be able to steal this abundance. I know exactly how to do it. We just got to find the one that's actually directing all of these things, because it isn't those that are in control. And this disabled piece, however that was, had trusted that for a time and was in a low vibration because of that. But they found themselves, like, they trusted their intuition at some point in time. At some point in time, when they came affiliated with this wrong identity, with this wrong person, with this person that wasn't truly what it was, they sensed something and were like, I don't think this is who I'm supposed to be with. I don't think this is what I'm supposed to be affiliating with myself with. I don't think this is what I'm supposed to be a part of. And this main thief was just like headstrong, like, this is what it is. I already know. I just have to bind myself to this person, place, or thing, and that's going to gain me this abundance that this person, place, or thing has. And they are reaping some reward for that, to a degree, because they are still attached to that. But then we have like one of the leaders here that has then bound themselves to that thief in order to receive from that. Like, they almost fell for that too. This it's almost as if this piece at first was separate from the group to begin with, right? This person was separate from the group to begin with. And it was only because they were separate that the group started to look at them. The group was literally tied into these steps to be taken, but the steps were completely off from the abundance. And I think that these pieces could kind of see that too. This group could kind of see that too. But they were trusting those that were over them, that that's where the abundance would come. And that eventually, because the two were set, the two that were in control were set to end up directly where the abundance was as the wheel turned. But I think people kind of grew impatient, and they realized that these steps, well, first they started pulling apart the steps. They're like, okay, well then we're each going to have our own steps. This step here I saw as like, this one was clarity, this one was love, this one was compassion, this one was humanity. That was how I saw it, where this one was the first one, and this one I saw as like just the light and positivity in general, and then it moved into compassion and love, and then it moved into purity, and then it moved into embracing one's own darkness, and then I think that one, I don't remember what the next one was because I was paying attention to this one on top, so I don't even remember what the last one was. But this one was love, compassion, like caring for people socially. And what I'm seeing is that actually has almost like, there's like a shadow from this stone over this one. And so like, if initially this piece was very easy to see and very easy to recognize, and people started questioning, like, is that actually the one that's moving the wheel? Because it was all by itself. They didn't realize that it was this old one, but this old one's been done away with completely at this point. And because of that, even, that's allowed this piece to then come into the Wheel of Fortune. And it's been blocked by this love for society, by this love and compassion. It's been hidden from this leader that was looking for its abundance and ended up binding itself through the thief to this one. And then there's these other members of the group that kind of bound themselves to this thief as well, all bound themselves to each other, trying to bind themselves to this sense of finance. Even some of them found and realized that to bind themselves to this original, to the one that was really moving the wheel, or appeared to be moving the wheel, who had initially set those steps. But ultimately none of that is leading them, well, it's leading to them to the abundance too. They're all touching the stone. So they're all attached to the Wheel of Fortune, but they're kind of all attached to themselves too, and feeding off of each other, feeding off of themselves. And like I said, there isn't purity here, and there isn't a sense of history or balance. We also have, just like I said, one of the ones from the group completely separated from their groups and kind of came around the back end and has found abundance that way as well. So bravo on you for making that choice, and bravo on this disabled person. Like I said, it could be that they had an extreme addiction of some sort, or maybe like a really bad past that left them super scathed. Like maybe they're a multiple felon or something like that. There's something that made them socially inferior, and because of that they had maybe just a mental disability, but they had or disorder rather, but they had, because of that, the insecurities of that had them going down the wrong path. And at some point in time they realized that that was the wrong path, that they didn't want to bind themselves to this plan of stealing from others anymore, and they moved away from that, and they found actual abundance, just as much as this main character kind of just trusted the movement of the tides the entire time. This main character is gone. They're gone. But they're also these are still reaping the benefits of that having been a thing. So there was some sort of, this one, like I said, bravo on this one too, because it trusted in love and compassion and brought it into abundance. This one is kind of like it set a system in place. And although the system was crashed and pulled apart, it was able to be used by all of these others, and it kind of did actually bring on the karma of all things that kind of moved things into the proper place to receive what they were meant to receive. And that's what I got from that. So that was pretty vague, but vague ones are good because that means that you can take from it. Hopefully you can find ways that applied to you, and that it hopefully helps you to look into the future, into how things can be and where to properly place yourself so that you don't end up on the wrong side of abundance. And yeah, that almost like, to me, feels like slightly prophetic, like kind of like a foreshadowing of current events, and just the breakdown of them. It almost seems like no matter what is done, it's already been preset, and it was just like reading off of that preset. So that's an interesting read. I like the idea of using all these different random things because it definitely gives a different vibe to the reads, which is fun. I'm going to do another read momentarily. I'm just going to go pee. So this is the end of this one, and I will be back shortly.